Welcome in, everybody. This is Dynasty Mode,
Woo!
the unofficial EA Sports college football game podcast. Back after an unfortunate layoff. Demetri, how goeth to thee?
I am good. In the words of, or I guess to paraphrase Tom Brady, I'm 41. I've got a lot of shit going on.
That, in fact, nah, that's not paraphrasing. That's literally what he said.
Well, he said he
on
was
the
45.
sideline.
Oh, right. Right. Did you see Spencer Hall's tweet on that?
I did not.
That said, this is the full Florida experience getting screamed at by a man at a park whose wife hates him.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. I'll tell you this. I want to thank everyone for sticking with us this last week. Had some personal things come up and made it a little bit of an issue to try and record for the last week. So thanks for sticking around. We are back and we are still having personal things happen, but we will get through these because we will get through them as a family, a Dynasty Mode family. Demetri, you are my Lima Bean Queen.
Arky, I believe the thing we say is all in.
Oh, that's what they say at Auburn University. That's right. And their family.
I mean, call me crazy, Arky, but I bet they're not the only ones.
Well, it depends. Like, do you consider poor football performance to be all in?
Yeah, you were all in on how bad it's going to get. You saw the Missouri game.
That's right. You know, my favorite part, my favorite part about watching every single sort of tweet that runs by my timeline is like it's literally a cavalcade of people on Sunday morning, like. So when are they breaking the news? When are they breaking the news? For like the last 4 weeks. Like,
I mean, clearly if they didn't do it after Ole Miss going into a bye week, they're not going to do it during the season.
If they weren't going to do it after the Missouri game,
yeah,
they were going to do it during the season. I mean, I don't know what it matters. Auburn almost fires their coach in the middle of every season, and then it gets to the very final game against Alabama. They sometimes win it, and you're like, well, I guess we're stuck.
I guess
we can't make a decision outside of the Iron Bowl.
It is sort of sad that Brian Harsin is not going to get to experience the "is this an extend Gus or fire Gus year" phenomena of being the coach at Auburn University.
That is true. I mean, had he been like more of a good old boy, or maybe won like a couple of games his first year that mattered, maybe he would have gotten a chance to do that. But instead you make allegations about cheating on your wife with a random assistant. So not coaching assistant. That would be a much bigger story in the state.
Right.
That would be a very interesting story I would love to cover. Instead, I want to talk about this college football video game that's coming out next year.
Before we jump into that, can we try and get the yellow fella on the show one week?
I don't know why we can't try. Yeah.
Well, let's give it a whirl. Let's see if he'll put those beavers from his commercials in the game.
I'll tell you this. If you're listening to this, I'm going to try peer pressure, okay?
Jimmy Rain, if you have the balls to listen to this.
No. Okay, no. This has nothing to do with Jimmy Rain, but I will listen to you. Like, we will come up with a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But we have reached out to some people before that have decided not to do this show for whatever reasons. Most of them not really too negative, but we've had, people inside of Electronic Arts, formerly inside of Electronic Arts, who have said they've had non-competes they've signed, and not competes, but I'm sorry, non-disclosures to be able to talk about the way that they worked on the video game, so on and so forth. So you respect some of that. But I reached out to someone recently that I think you all can peer pressure into coming onto the show.
Ooh.
So I hope you guys are ready with your Twitter tags and your Instagram handles. In fact, I would have to go look up his official Twitter just to make sure I get it right for you guys to go after.
Okay.
But I had a back and forth conversation with Joey Harrington.
Interesting.
And Joey Harrington did not want to come on, but was not mean about it or rude about it. So, like, if you guys go out and tweet at him and say, hey, come on to the Dynasty Mode podcast, don't be mean about it.
Right.
He was not mean to me, and I was not mean back at him. Be encouraging. That's enough of you listen to this that you want to hear his side of the story. And he, talked about the NSYNC stuff, and he had a good time with the Chris Vanini article came out, and then Demetri, you tweeted about him, and he sent the photograph of the of the NSYNC being at the Pro Bowl with the Madden video game launch.
Yeah, he thanked me for identifying the members of NSYNC.
Well, he should have, because that is your gift to the show.
Yes,
each and every single week. By the way, if you don't listen to the end of the show, that's what you're missing out on every single week.
My goodbye is naming all of the members of NSYNC by height.
That's right. It's a different thing every week. It's our thing. Okay. You can just listen to the end of the show for it. So if you go find Joey Harrington on Twitter, can you find him real quick on Twitter?
Yeah.
Because he is a nice fellow. He was very nice to us, but we really want to talk to him about what it's like to be a cover athlete.
At Joey3 Harrington.
At Joey3 Harrington on Twitter. So go tweet at him. You say, hey, we really want you on the podcast. He doesn't seem to think anybody wants to hear about it. And he doesn't think people are going to be interested. And I say, nay, as lots of horses might say, nay. So,
very good.
Yeah, so go harass Joey Harrington, everybody, just for a minute and be nice. Enough of you might be able to convince him to come back on.
Yeah, it's not like we're asking him to put up a billboard in Times Square for a failed Heisman campaign.
Well, that's the part where we're probably not getting them back on.
Okay, all right,
fair enough. So this week's podcast is going to be a little bit different because it's different than last week's podcast, which didn't exist. So we're actually going to have programming. So what I was thinking about is that right now currently I am the offensive coordinator with Idaho. Right?
Congratulations.
And, thank you. The Kibbe Dome has been wonderful to me so far. The videos, by the way, coming out this week of the first few games. Big tough battle against Florida in that first game, but more of that on the YouTube channel. So I was thinking, like, when I was in the middle of the coaching carousel, I was thinking, like, if I got an opportunity to go sort of, anywhere at that point, beggars couldn't be choosers. I think I was starting to think about some places I would go. But then I started thinking about, as the larger picture unfolds next year when the new game comes out, when we have 131 teams and some teams aren't having to be replaced with newer teams in college football revamped. I was starting to think, like, okay, you know what might be fun? What if instead of, you and I like to constantly do, like, be the very worst team and, build your way up there. Some people don't like to do that. Some people just like to be a member of the team that they choose. What if you could only coach at one university for the rest of your dynasty? But,
sorry, go ahead, give me the but.
But the one caveat's going to be is, like, we're going to look at, like, we're going to do this one for each conference.
Okay,
like, because I think each one of them comes up with a very different, unique reason why you would want to coach at a place at the Mountain West versus, let's say, the Pac-12.
Okay. Now, I do want to ask, so you say you can only this is the only place you are going to coach.
Yeah, let's just pretend like you had 1 year as an offensive coordinator.
Okay,
and so we're going to get you a coach at one of these conferences.
So that answers my question.
On the reverse end of this card.
That answers my question of, are we assuming that you get promoted from coordinator to head coach at this place ever?
Yeah, why not? So you got 1 year and you were really good as an OC or a DC, and you decided, you know what? I'm going to accept one job, let's say, from the ACC. But that's going to be the one job I go to for the rest of my life, and that's going to be it. I can accept no other jobs from that conference or anywhere else. So let's just start with the ACC, since I mentioned it. I have my answers all on the other side of these cards here. You can't really see it in a minute. Demetri, I'm going to go ahead and tell you that I'll start in the ACC, and I'll give it up to Virginia Tech.
Now, based on...
by the way, we are assuming the 2023-2024 conference realignment.
Okay.
So Virginia Tech would still be in the ACC because the ACC doesn't change at all.
So based on the game, what reason is Virginia Tech the choice?
Well, it's also okay. So it's not always about the game, purely the game or an offensive playbook or something like that for reason. For me, this is something about the game, though. For me, I think with what's happening with 4K resolution and the surround sound, THX, whatever audio they're going to have at the ultimate quality, I think if I'm only going to get one place in the ACC, if they get the license rights for it, I want to be at the place that comes out to Enter Sandman every single time for the home game. Like, if they're going to be able to give me the true environment of these universities, I feel like if I'm picking one, because if you think about it, the ACC, not for nothing, like, isn't loaded with a lot of super fun places to, like, want to be for 35, 40, 45 years. So like I could see myself doing Enter Sandman until 2057.
Okay. So I have two answers here because one is based on what we've seen in past games.
Mm-hmm.
And the other is based on like, oh man, if they just embrace just a little bit of fun, it could be the
Okay.
ideal place. Now, also, both of my schools, both of my choices will have a number of uniform options, which is very important to me when picking a school because it is half the fun. But based on what we know would be in the game, I think UNC has one of the best pregame presentations in the ACC. And I look, I live in North Carolina. I am not a North Carolina fan at all, but I think they have one of the more fun pregame presentations. If EA were so bold as to give me an avatar that looked somewhat not me, my coach avatar, but outside of the stadium being denied entry, that looked like Papa John Schnatter,
Okay.
I might want to go to Louisville.
Okay. Well, that is, I'll be fair, is very case by case dependent. Then there's
Right.
one single caveat to be able to get you. I'll take North Carolina was my number 2 on this list because I think that stadium is really cool. I think
It says someone that's never been there.
Cool looking. So, like I don't know how I'm supposed to make it cool on the game. Like but that stadium feels nice.
It is. You do have to walk through the woods to get there. Like it is a cool little feature, but parking is a real pain in the dick.
I'm not gonna do a lot of parking in the game.
Okay, all right.
I think
that's the only reason I ever buy the game.
When you put the Argyle on the field, it looks really, really unique and different.
Yeah,
and I think that shade of blue on the green grass is really kind of a nice pop feature. So I really kind of like that, and that's why it was my number 2. But like, I couldn't just do it based on, and for me, it was going to be based on uniforms alone.
Okay. Are we going AAC next? Because if we are,
we can go wherever you want, Captain.
Let's go AAC next because that ties into exactly my AAC choice. It is not only because of uniforms that I am picking Tulane. Tulane is a regular starting spot for me in this game. I can't explain it. I just feel a little bit of kindred spiritness with Tulane, having grown up on the Gulf Coast. But man, I've tweeted it many times, and I believe it. They might have the best uniforms in college football right now.
They look good, and
whether it is all blue with the green helmet or all green with the blue helmet, that fucking pops.
And their throwback logo is some adorable.
It's great.
Like it's lovable, and I would want it on most of my merchandise. And I feel like you have it on merchandise. So
you feel like I do?
Don't you have that Tulane?
I don't have the Roll Wave logo. I have a logo that like I know their like the Roll Wave is too good, right? But do you remember? Was it early 2000s? They had it was so bad it was good. The word Tulane, where the T is formed by a pelican with his wings spread out.
I do remember that. It's
just the stupidest logo.
What's wrong with that? Come on, Demetri.
I also have a T-shirt with a pelican on a boogie board.
Better.
Yeah,
I'll grant you that.
It's Tulane. They're pretty.
If you were watching the YouTube, you may have gotten a sneak peek of it. But here's my American. By the way, I do like how the fact that you have basically gone 2 for 2 on uniforms, and that's basically it. Yeah. For my AAC, look at that. I'm going East Carolina.
Oh, sure.
Going to the American. Now, you got to remember, the American is going to look very different.
So that's
2023,
that's the thing.
2024.
Like, I have been known to start a dynasty or two with UAB, who will be in the American. I am excited to use Charlotte, who I've never been able to use before in the game. They will be in the American. But I default to I'm a fan of sports aesthetics.
Yeah, in the American, if you've gotten used to how it looks now, very different in 2023-24.
Right.
UAB, Charlotte, East Carolina, Florida Atlantic, Memphis, Navy, North Texas, Rice, SMU, South Florida, Temple, Texas, San Antonio, Tulane, and Tulsa. And I'm telling you, that is not a conference full of like teams that get me excited to play as them. If I'm getting one, getting one, that was probably the toughest conference for me to go through and pick a team was probably the American because
Oh, brother, we
It's
haven't even
probably
gotten to Conference
ECU or
USA
SMU,
yet.
to be honest with you.
SMU. So do you have a team like this in the game where you in real life have no connection to them at all, right? But there is something about when they become available for you to become a head coach, you just have a sort of draw.
Yes.
SMU has
Yeah.
always been that one for me.
Yes. You know, there's like 3 of them that have all
Okay.
but like ECU is one of them.
Interesting.
It just and I didn't really get to explaining why ECU. I think the fact that you be a pirate pretty damn cool. I think that's sort of being a neat little thing for the mascots. I also like my big thing is I love seeing different stadiums.
Right.
Like and I think like it's such a different type stadium that I think that also appealed to me. Again, I'm SMU, and Temple. Who am I choosing from, right? Like South Florida plays where the Bucks play, where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers play. So like, all right, it's okay. But there's sort of a draw. And listen, do not count out the Ruff and McNeil factor that has gotten me into this program from a while ago, and will keep me into that program. But
I think this is important to point out as we talk about uniforms. Elite pant game at ECU.
That's true. ECU has gotten a lot of like noon games too against like South Carolina, NC State sort of recently, and you get a chance to sort of look at them, and that background logo or that midfield logo of like the state, like the ECU Pirates, and then the pirate hat in the eye, and the mustachioed man.
A few years ago,
it goes pretty hard, man.
A few years ago, NC State did a version of that with the wolf peeking through, and it was headlines here in the state of how dare NC State take ECU's midfield logo. And kudos to NC State saying, hey, we're the power conference school. What are you going to do about it? Fight us.
What are you going to do, pores? Huh? So let's get this one out of the way because this is a very tiny conference / independence. Demetri, there will only be 4 independent teams in 2023-2024. Who will you play as?
What? So Notre Dame, UConn, UMass, and who?
My team. Army.
Army, yes.
Yeah. And I don't usually like to play as these
because you hate the troops.
Triple option team. That's right. By the way, we never talk about our website, our shirt store, shirtsec.com. You can check it out. I'm posting the picture right now. We actually have a shirt right now that says support the troops, run the triple option.
I own this in the Air Force color scheme.
We have it in Air Force, Army, Navy, and the All-American.
Yep.
So anyway, that was our design. We came up with it. It's American made with American
hands.
Okay, fair enough. Hands. We stitch these together ourselves as Americans.
Right.
And that's over at shirtsec.com. You got the logo right on the screen here for the YouTubers, but shirtsec.com. Check it out. We got more than that design. But also because Notre Dame does nothing for me, right? Like
I'm with you.
It's viscerally nothing for me. UConn and UMass, there's again nothing for me there either. Army is like a little bit, right? It gives me a little bit, and I'm not going to go to Army and run the triple option. I'm going to make them run something that I can actually have success with. So I'll pick Army out of the independents.
Okay. UConn, UMass, Notre Dame, and Army. This is so hard to the extent that I didn't even think about independence being something I would have to make a choice on. You know what? I will go again. I'll go with you. I'll go with Army because it's the only way I get to see that muscular, sexy donkey on the sidelines.
Man, that's not the first time I've heard that out of your mouth, by the way. You know that? Yeah. Would you like to try the MAC next?
Sure. I assumed we were going to go in alphabetical order, but yeah, let's go to the MAC.
We have not been going in alphabetical order. I will tell you that. Although we've kind of gotten close to there. The MAC for me, it is very, very simple. Even though I love this conference and I watch MACtion every single week, and I bet it every single week, and it is the premier level of football. No matter what CBS tries to put on at 2:30 in the afternoon, it's the football I want to watch. Brother, I'm going with Scott Leffler's Bowling Green.
Wow, why Bowling Green? I thought I knew where you were going, and that was quite the swerve.
I was thinking about it earlier today, and I don't like Eastern Michigan's field. Like the gray is like it's a nice change. But here's also the thing, Demetri. I gotta have it for 40 years.
Right.
That's gonna get real old real fast, especially if I'm doing 6, 7, 8 of those home games. I think for me, for some reason, the orange and brown of those freaking Falcons looks nice to me. And I think their logo is enough of a jumbled mess that I just kind of enjoy it. I just kind of enjoy it. And they do have a bunch of uniform options, and you have to, considering your colors are orange and brown.
Right.
So.
Right. I mean, look, if you are going uniform options, which I adore uniforms, Miami, Ohio seems to be the pick here. However, I do like Eastern Michigan's gray field. I also like Eastern Michigan's pregame presentation where they break down the cinder block wall to come out. I also would hope, Arky, EA has some sort of special code where, where you are doing your Build-A-Coach. If you become Eastern Michigan's coach, you can unlock a Grease Monkey shirt as an option on the sideline. I would go Eastern Michigan all day, every day.
Would you pay for that DLC?
No.
No?
No, okay. Not even for a second.
Okay, let's go to a big-time Power 5 conference. If you were going to pick the Pac-12, where would Demetri Ravanos find himself coaching forever?
I have found myself in the old games gravitating in the past towards Colorado. I don't think that's what I would do in this particular game. I feel like for having all of the uniform options, having I'll say classic college football stadium, given what used to happen there. And also the only place outside of California that has a little bit of recruiting juice to it. Give me Arizona State.
Yeah. I mean, there's something okay about Arizona State, right? Like there's a lot of I tried to get myself to like Utah, and it's fine. And I don't want to be there for 40 years.
I will say this. Utah could present the not strangest. Well, yeah, strangest, but also like the most fun time to pick the uniform kind of options because of all of the like one-time hand-painted helmet designs they've done.
True. Every game I would wear the Rose Bowl helmet, with the rose through the U.
I would waste it and just go with the old classic red U logo.
Every single week.
Yeah, we're not here to have fun.
I get used to some uniforms. I also like classic uniforms too. I just, that's why I'll go with this pick here, Demetri. Colorado. There is nothing like.
Ralphie is hard to beat.
I was about to say the part of this game is the pregame. Like it is part of the thing, and I can't hate on Ralphie in the run out. And I think the field's a cool field, right? Like I think it's a very unique and cool field that I can get used to seeing for a long, long time. I also don't hate the idea of being able to coach games every year, 1 or 2 in the snow. Like there's a good chance you're going to get snow in one of those games. So yeah, Colorado's probably my Pac-12 team. I gave a little thought for Washington, but I don't know. Washington feels like it's cooler than it actually is, right? Like I as far as like wanting to be there for a long time for it.
Yeah, to see the stadium is amazing in real life because of where it sits. I don't think like it, on a video game it's just pixels.
Demetri, one of our favorite conferences, the Mountain West.
Arky, where are you calling home? I mean, this is a no-brainer for me, right? Like, we're going to the University of Hawaii. You want to talk about unique atmosphere. You want to talk about unique playbook. You want to talk about the chance to bring back the single greatest helmet in the history of college football. Arky Shea, give me, and by the way, if, we have gone through all the effort to put in Ralphie and to put in Ramses running out at UNC and all of the various birds that fly around the stadiums. You're telling me EA Sports can't put the haka in? Like, that's give me Hawaii all day long.
Here's my issue with Hawaii, and I kind of felt like you would go there because I know your love of going off the mainland. And the biggest issue I had is that like, they're basically playing at a high school stadium right now, and for next year too. So I don't even know what that cool new stadium is going to look like, and I might get charged to get that upgraded, And listen, I'm not ready for that. I'm just not ready to get now. Maybe if we have this in the off season of 2024 or something, and we know what the new stadium looks like, then yeah, but in the meantime, Demetri, I'm going UNLV.
UNLV is a good one. I like that one. I think there are a lot of good options in the Mountain West.
Mountain West is probably my hardest one to pick.
Yep.
Mountain West, I love a lot of options.
Like even the big dog in the conference, Boise, is like it's a really good video game environment.
It is. I thought I could get myself very bored with the blue field for over and over and over time. Because
you mentioned earlier
a gimmick of a gimmick, really.
You mentioned earlier Colorado having a good field. Let's forget about the entirety of the field. Do you know who I think has underrated end zones in college football? Like we talk about the Tennessee checkerboard and the slashes at Notre Dame. Dude, give me the postcard that is Wyoming's end zone every day.
Oh, man.
It is a gorgeous end zone.
It is. I know 3/4 of their athletic budget is that end zone.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's probably actually I think it's field turf now, so it's not nearly as much as you had to pay, but it is so pretty.
Yeah.
That yellow and brown, that's the entirety of the end zone. You and I are fans
with the mountains like landscape on it.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous.
You and I are fans of teams that do their end zones very differently. Like Auburn just puts theirs in, Alabama decides to bathe it in crimson, which is kind of interesting. And I always like the full end zone look. The checkerboards are cool, but they're lame because they don't go the entirety of the end zone for me.
Yeah.
Like Notre Dame's, just sides or italicized stripes or their backspaces. not cool. Cool.
There is one end zone that is like it's not full
of
color. It is. I don't know what it is about Clemson's end zone. I've just always looked at it, and I wouldn't call it good, but I've always thought, now that's a classy end zone.
Mm-hmm.
It's an end zone where you'd have a cocktail reception.
I also like UNLV because I feel like we're going to get a lot of the turnover chain gimmick accoutrement coming forward, and UNLV have a slot machine on the sideline for the turnovers. And by the way, it comes up 7s all the time.
I guess at some point then we would have to go back and correct the American to be Memphis so that you could have the pimp cane. Or the pimp toe, the pimp rope.
Just for the pimp cane. Yeah. By the way, you want to talk about Wyoming with a beautiful end zone versus someone who has a terrible end zone. That's Memphis. That tiger stripe end zone, that blue and gray. Like, I don't know what that is.
Thank you.
That is awful. Let's go to the Sun Belt. Demetri,
I call it the Fun Belt.
You do. Now, this is one of those conferences that looks very different than what we see right now.
Absolutely.
Demetri, I'm going to roll.
Wait, does it look different than what we see right now? I think it's all set, right?
See, App State, Arkansas State, Coastal, Georgia Southern, Georgia State, James Madison, Louisiana, and then Monroe. Marshall. Yeah, Marshall is officially this year. Then that's right.
Marshall, Old Dominion, and Southern Miss are all in.
Old Dominion, South Alabama, Southern Miss, Texas State, Troy. Okay, so it doesn't look all different.
Yeah.
Demetri.
Okay. All right. So this one,
we know the right place. Let's go to the right place together.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to count us down. You just tell me. I just want us to go to the same place here.
Okay. So this one's going to depend for me because if we're bringing back the momentum meter, which I think it seems to be a popular thing people want back. I don't know why. But if you're bringing back the idea that the environment can affect what happens, like it is App State, and there is no question about it.
I thought we were going to go to the same place together. I'd hoped we had gone to the same because there are 3 legitimate options here. You picked one of them. I will give you credit. You picked one of the legitimate options there.
Is your other one Coastal?
Coastal is another legitimate option.
They
there.
begin every game with a chicken that rides out onto the field on a jet ski that has been turned into a four-wheeler. It is excellent.
I appreciate how you bring it up every time because it is actually that good to bring it up every single time. But the third option for me,
South?
James
Madison, sure.
Yeah. I think the big appeal for me is, first of all, they got a really fun offensive playbook. Secondly, dude, they're
Sexy
new.
Bulldog mascot.
Yeah, they're new. There's a newness to James Madison, and the fact that it's a purple color scheme.
Yeah,
like you don't see a ton of purple. Like LSU offsets their purple with a gold, right? And it's almost like a harsh, and you're like, all right, eyes are just gonna hurt. That's fine.
Yeah,
but I'm used to this. This is a more majestic royalty with with this purple. And that's why the Bulldogs wearing a freaking crown, right? So it makes all the sense in the world. I like James Madison just because it's going to be fresh. It's going to be new and playbooks, like I said, I've not played a ton with in general, but I also don't like to go pick different playbooks all the time. So if James Madison just has a standard playbook with their team, I'll play with it. That's good enough for me.
All right.
All right, let's go to another big time conference. How about the Big Ten? Pick a team to meet.
Oh, that's not where I thought you were going next. The Big Ten. I think that with the Big Ten, because there are so many big classic stadiums in the Big Ten, I think the ideal would be to not play for one of those schools.
Interesting.
So that you could circle around to those schools. And Arky, as you know, I am very pro space. And so the University of Space, with apologies to both Air Force and UCF, is Purdue, the alma mater of one Buzz Aldrin, or excuse me, not Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong.
I do appreciate that there is a legitimate battle over the University of Space, and one that all three of the institutions take personally.
And here's the best part of that, Arky. Air Force only was able to make that claim for the first time 6 years ago, and it is like they will die defending being called the University of Space. I love it.
For me, you brought up, I think, the big reason. This is traditional. I'm going Michigan. I think I looked at the whiteout of Happy Valley. I thought that was okay. And I thought for atmosphere, if I'm going to see the place over and over again, it's either Indiana or Michigan. Now I'm kidding about Indiana. But Michigan.
Well, I mean, you are always walking around telling everyone to love each other.
Yeah, that is the second thing I do every morning when I wake up. So you just happen to hear me oftentimes echoing the thing I said the most that day. So,
right.
But I think Michigan, in the current game, right? You go and hit the banner, but the banner doesn't any move. We're old graphics and stuff, right? I get it, but the update version of that with the stadium that I think can be the THXQ, whatever sound is going to be in my ears. If I'm going 40 years, Ohio State's kind of, I feel like that there's essentially a high school tracking around the football field. And
right.
It loses a little bit to me, even though they cram a whole bunch of those heathens in there. Penn State's okay. Rutgers, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with Rutgers. Maryland's just a weird end zone. There's not a lot. When I think about it, there's not a lot of appeal outside of Wisconsin and Michigan to me. And I chose Michigan over the jump.
The Scotties, sure.
Yeah. How about let's go to the CUSA
real quick before we go to the CUSA.
We got three more.
If we're going based on who has the fun uniform thing to do you know who has sneakily entered that conversation in a big way over the last, I would say, 4 seasons?
Okay.
Northwestern.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're great. I'm saying they've got a lot of options.
Yeah. Speaking of purple, I really do kind of like their purple, sort of a stripe across the chests.
That would look great.
I really like that look. Yeah.
The weird, hey, we made these sort of loopy letter looking things for Ireland and we just never stopped wearing them. Those I don't care for.
I think, were they at one point, or are they still Adidas?
They are Under Armour now.
They're Under
I think
Armour?
they probably were at one point Adidas.
They may have been. I don't know. I almost gave Adidas credit for doing a decent uniform when Texas A&M cannot get that figured out. CUSA, Demetri, I'm just going to start it off with the bang.
Okay.
Sam frickin' Houston.
This one is tough because you talk about how much fun it is to play with the new programs, and they are all in Conference USA.
Yeah. Okay. So Conference USA, here is what they're going to look like. Here we go. FIU, Demetri, you still have a team there. So that's good. They haven't been booted out. You know, you got to feel like you're in pretty good shape just because you're needed just for numbers, not because you're any good.
Yeah. I mean, the good news is we could stay as good as we are right now forever and at least get bowl eligible.
You do have pretty nice Miami Vice uniforms, though. I'll give you that, in a good field for it. Jacksonville State, speaking of newbies, Liberty comes over.
Oh, sure.
Louisiana Tech, Middle Tennessee, New Mexico State comes in. So does Sam Houston, UTEP, and Western Kentucky. And by the way, just added as of last week, Kennesaw State.
I was listening to a podcast today that said,
but they won't be until after for 2 videos.
It'll be the 24 season is when they'll enter. I was listening to a podcast today that said adding Kennesaw State gets Conference USA to 10 members, and I was shocked. I mean, I swear to God, I thought they were sitting at 6.
Then you started hearing Division 4 teams get added, and you're like, oh wow,
right?
They added Wisconsin Whitewater. That's pretty.
Honestly, do you know the one school that as I started going through okay, I guess it's more than 6. I got stuck on 9. The one I forgot is going to Conference USA is Liberty.
Oh,
and I'm not saying that as a bit. That is literally the school I forgot was going.
Because that's like the one school out of those 10 that actually have a legitimate sex scandal happening on this campus, and you forgot it
at any given time of year, day, or month. This one's tough. So go finish your thing on Sam Houston because I want to hear the reason.
I love the color scheme of that football team. Again, I think it's another unique and fun sort of offense to sort of play around with. But more importantly, I'm interested and fascinated with the new and the smaller stadium. Although obviously most of these are smaller stadium. I had forgotten FIU's got themselves a nice smaller stadium until I was watching them earlier this year.
You're the one.
Yeah, I was the one until the 3 people saw them on national television for the Vice Knights game. By the way, that game should have been on Vice TV, to be honest with you.
I mean, it would not have been wildly different from where they have been most of the year.
That's fair. By the way, not a lot of people in that stadium, which was wild.
Yeah.
I couldn't get a lot of people in there. Interesting. That stadium holds 90 people, and he couldn't.
I mean, look, I want to choose Kennesaw State. I do, because talk about pregame.
Is it because of their mascot gimmick? Not their mascot, but their turnover gimmick?
Their sideline gimmick, yes. The plank. You would have to assume the plank with the goofy drawn-on face would be a key part of this game. But Arky, I mean,
Demetri's getting up if you can't hear.
What? How could I not go FIU, Arky?
Yeah, your allegiances are to FIU. Well, I don't like the fact that you're saying that and knowing the Southeastern Conference is one of the 2 conferences that are left to come up here.
Oh, good point. Let me go ahead and grab that one off the wall.
Oh shoot. Okay. All right. You can have that one. Demetri, let's end with the SEC, but let's first go with the Big 12, our next to last, our penultimate conference.
Yeah. When you said when you were leading into Big 10, I thought this is where we were going just because of the amount of turnover in this conference.
Well, here's the turnover. So the 2023-2024 Big 12 will have Baylor, BYU, UCF, Cincinnati, Houston, Iowa State, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, TCU, Texas Tech, West Virginia, or as we all remember, the Big 8. That's clearly just all the Big 8 conferences. So for me, I think just the hilarity of it, I'm playing BYU in the Big 12. I just think that there is just going to be something so awesome about going up against Texas Tech as BYU every year and going up against UCF as BYU and going up against Baylor as BYU.
Arky, those poor Mormons are going to have to make regular trips to West Virginia.
I'm all in for it, man. And listen, we could talk about BYU. Speaking of, sneakily puts together some great uniform options every single year. Like,
agreed.
So,
Agreed.
like, that's a team I could play with. If you gave me every team, I could play with them for a long, long time.
All right. This pick, like, there are a lot of good uniform teams in the Big 12. There are a lot of great uniform teams. Oklahoma State is like, they just have a myriad of great uniform combinations. And that is sort of where I was leaning until, Arky, I don't know if you saw the story about future Space U games at UCF.
Okay.
But there is an organization on campus working very hard next year to bring a walk-around version of the Citronaut mascot back to campus. And if that is the case, I am going to be UCF every single season once this game comes out. And we will always play Space U games to make sure the Citronaut is in the stadium.
You know, the great thing is this UCF team 10 years ago was winless and no one could give a rip less about them. And now they're very much a cool team. Like they're a cool team that has that national championship behind them, but also got a lot of people talking about them a few years after being winless. I should say undefeated, and then going undefeated just a few years later. I think it's a wonderful success story for college football because that is a much more interesting college football success story than Boise for me.
Arky, you know who we have to thank for all that? Blake Bortles.
Yeah, we don't talk enough about Blake Bortles. And we don't talk enough about Dante Culpepper doing his thing, in Tuscaloosa. But that's cool.
Yeah.
That was before, like, good stuff
That was
started
post
happening.
Dante Culpepper, though.
Was that post? I thought that was.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
I'm positive. I'm positive Culpepper
positive.
was the 99 draft. Shut up, Cat.
All right.
Culpepper was the 99 draft. That was the 2000 season.
That was the 3-8 2000 season?
Yeah.
Someone could fact check us if they want to. We're also not going to read that comment and not really care that much. What Demetri might, he might be like, haha, Arky was right. All right, let's finish up with the SEC. Got a couple minutes left here. Demetri, I'm going to let you finish with the SEC. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that I'm straight up Ole Miss.
Wow.
I think Ole Miss is, I've told you before, I don't like Alabama Stadium very much. It's too professional, too like square, too like it's. I think like the four corners having the four quarters of the not the end zone of the stadium having the big boards. Like I don't know, it's just something I just don't really like about the stadium.
You would prefer to go to a place that literally is uncomfortable to watch a game in.
Listen, I'm going to a place that's literally putting up like party tents to be able to watch the game. That's what I'm interested in.
Well, your version would be in the stadium. You would not be out on the virtual Grove. No,
they have like a section where it's just tents. Like it's just tents that are up above people. So I think there's just something cool about Vaught Hemingway Stadium. It's expanded in the last 7 or 8 years, so that makes it better. But again, like for me, the game atmosphere, like if I want to go, I either want to go really, really big and like Knoxville's kind of cool for that. That might be kind of neat. Alabama's got the, I guess they're under 100,000 now after some of the reconstruction, but they're like 90 plus thousand or something like. That's true. You got to get the strobes, baby. Jordan Hare's like 86,000. Sanford's like 90,000. Like there are some really good atmospheres there, but I think there's something unique about Oxford that's like a lot of fun to watch. And I think honestly, of all the fields in that conference on TV, like Vaught Hemingway, like the field looks really good and clean on TV. So, let me play with that in a weird way.
I don't know. Okay, so obviously my pick, look, I don't even have to get up for that one. You can see right there. There's the Alabama diploma. So obviously my pick would be Alabama. But I would say this. If we are emphasizing stadium experience, I mean, it's really like it is a really unique thing to have the cowbells going in Starkville.
Sure. Sure,
Now,
those
it wouldn't
very
be my
illegal.
choice because Starkville is a garbage hole filled with garbage people.
Oh my
But
God. The place is
um,
terrible.
it's the worst. It
It's
is the
terrible.
worst. We did a game when they played NC State they played the Belk Bowl? I think it was the Belk Bowl. We did a game on my radio show. I think we just called it like, is it in Starkville? And I named major chain businesses and asked people, was there one in Starkville, Mississippi? Do you know where the nearest Target is to Starkville, Mississippi?
No.
Tuscaloosa,
Oh.
90 miles away.
Well, that's a Walmart crew. Okay, that's
Fair.
straight up. That's a Walmart crew.
That might be a Kmart crew.
Oh, okay.
We're
All right.
Lots country.
That's gonna do it for us. Hey, thank you guys so much for being aboard. Comment down below if you got some ideas on where you would want to go in some of these conferences. We'll read some of them on next week's podcast. But thank you guys for being patient. We'll be back again next week for another episode. Until then, Demetri, say something nice to the good people.
I forgot what I say.